Hey, welcome guys to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to cover some of the new feature provided by C# 6.0. So I have code that's I have written in C#, using Visual Studio 2015, and basically we're going to cover some of the new feature on C# 6.0. Okay, and of course we will be looking at the example and the syntax and stuff like that. And I have written a little application using a Roslyn compiler. So if you guys are not familiar with what the Roslyn is, it's a compiler from Microsoft. It's exposed as an open source. You can find the source, you can look at the source code, you can consume the whole compiler as a service. You can include those into your project. So it's a really awesome feature. I mean, like, I think it has a lot of potentiality. People can make all kind of stuff with this. Some of the usefulness maybe to I don't know, maybe code generation, or there's so many potentiality. Anyway, so let's see. We're going to talk about this new feature on 6.0. The first thing we're going to talk about is auto property initializer. So let's see how the auto property initializer really works, and I have some example here. Okay, so I have this. So here is my little object called product, the class called product, and it has a property called, this property on line number 12 is interest to us, product ID. This is the getter and setter, and right away we are initializing, we are basically assigning a value to it. This is the new feature on C# 6.0. And not only we can initialize value right away in the same line for a property having both getter and setter, but we can do only for the one that is the, just have a getter here. In this case, I just have a getter, and I'm just giving the new GUID value to it. Okay? And if I run this application right now, of course, nothing is special. Only thing you will see, if I just say product and it's a product ID, you will see just the GUID from there. Let's run the project here. Oh, why my Visual Studio is taking longer. Oh, sorry for that. I have a method here, but I commented out. I was like, why it was not calling? Okay, now it's gonna call. Okay, like I said, nothing is special. Just print out that, the ID. Okay, and we can do, like I said, we can do exactly the same thing for our read-only property. It's a product category ID, and we can, let's print that one too. Okay, nothing is special, just the syntax here. The thing to know is that you can have getter and setter, and you can set the value right away in the same line. It's a really cool, but not really wow amazing feature, but it's good to have, right? So we have it now. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is using static construct. Let's look at this, what this syntax, what it is, okay, in the source code. So for that, I have another example here called, I have this little static class called math calculator class here. It has a two method. Get is square root of any number that you pass in, and also the log of the given number, okay? These two methods here. And then I'm just calling this square root and the log. And if you are, if you have been coding for a while, I mean, you will know that those methods are the part of the math class. And math class, let's say just for the demo purposes, I'm going to go ahead and comment it out, that code. I will talk about this one later. Right now it says, hey, I don't know what the square root is. You have not specified the namespace. So, before 6.0 we used to write something like this. Math.square root. It's happy now. Same for the log method, right? And here, instead of extra system, type in here, we might have using system namespace. It's still fine, but now instead, what we can do with the CSOP 6.0, we can have something like this, using this construct static system.math. We don't have to do math anymore. For example, it knows the square root function is now coming out from the system.math namespace. So as you can see right here, the same thing for the log. This is a new feature, kind of cool, but not really wow. Okay. Alright, that's the second thing. Next thing we're going to look at into is something called, there is a new dictionary syntax, dictionary initializer. This is always, like when you have to initialize a dictionary, they have so many curly braces. It was always kind of little funky with the prior to this one, but they have a little nicer syntax now. Let's look into that example here. I have something called index initializer, dictionary not that one, new dictionary initializer. Okay, let's look at this source code. Okay, here's my class, and this class has two public methods. The first one, first one uses a new syntax to initialize the dictionary object, and the second one is how we have been using, before 6.0, before CSOP 6.0. Basically, I have an Apple stock here, so I'm going to define a dictionary. Maybe I'm going to define a dictionary with a list of stock information, and then with what this new feature allows us to use the key of our dictionary as a bracket inside the bracket. For example, here our key is a string data type, and I'm saying, okay, this is Apple symbol, or stock symbol, ticker symbol, stock ticker symbol for Apple here, and corresponding to that, I can assign the list of, here is a value, list of stock for the Apple, for the, I don't know, maybe 3 forms or whatever. I have just 2 examples here. This is the current version. But before that, this is how we had to initialize the dictionary. We're just going to create our dictionary here, and using a bunch of curly braces here, we're going to say here is the Apple, this is the key, and corresponding to that, we have a list of stock information. Okay, little improvement here. This well, I would say this feature I would definitely love it. This version is a lot better, so syntax and everything. I would definitely use this one. It's a better improvement. I would say the kudos for Microsoft, or these people who write this CSOP, the Visual Studio. All right, that is just that dictionary thing. Now, next thing we're going to look at into is this. Something called string interpolation. This is the awesome tool in Math. Awesome feature. I really loved it. Let's look at into what it is, okay? To look at that one, I have a little a class called product here, okay? Even there is a better class actually. It has more. Here's a StockInfo class here, and then I'm basically overriding the toString method, and in the override I have this implementation here. This is starting with the $sign here, dollar symbol, and the double quote here. It starts here, and that double quote ends right here. This is the new feature, string interpolation. The good thing about this one is like you can put any variable, anything that you have inside your class or whatever. So it has even intelligence. It knows what it is. So I think in this case it was date. Before that, of course, we are so accustomed to using this string.format. There was a string.format. It's not that bad. It's a lot better than string concatenation. But however, you need to know all the placeholder. For example, I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to I need to put 5 parameter. But like if for some reason if I didn't have enough, the compiler would throw the exception and all those things. It's kind of like a little tedious. It's better than, like I said, it's a little better. It was better than string concatenation, but it's still not, I would say, optimal. But with this string interpolation, I love this. It's awesome. So now all we have to do this in one line of code, but the syntax is much better, and the compiler automatically figures out what that dollar is. This is an awesome feature. I'll be using this one everywhere. Okay, that is that. And the number 5, there is something called expression embodied member. Let's look into what that is. The expression embodied member could be both property or method or whatever. So here's my product. Do you see this line number 15 right here? I have a method called display product, and right away I have this kind of like a lambda expression. And remember, like, you don't really have to use interpolation right here, but just for this example, since we are talking about interpolation, string interpolation, so basically I'm saying, okay, here we go. When these methods get called, I'm basically returning the concatenated value of the product ID and parent product category ID. And like I said, this string embodied member could be method or product info. It could be anything. So let's compile this code. So this time display, when you call this method here. As you can guess now, all it does is basically puts those GUID values into the console. One for the ID and one for the parent ID, parent category ID. And like I said, we can have that as a property. So I have property called product info. Okay, so this is really cool. You might be wondering where it is useful, as we have been writing this code so often. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's say I got a product name here, product ID, and maybe let's say product string, product cost. Let's define another property here called product cost, and maybe we can have property like string cost details or whatever, and we would write something like this is just an example, right? So getter is just going to maybe return this dot product info, this dot product name would cost whatever plus, let's say is a product cost. You see what I mean? Like this is how it's a very common code. We have been writing this code for, since really long time. But instead of writing like just to do this, we have like 1, 2, 3 lines of code. We could have done this in just one line using this expression body symbol, right? Body a feature. Instead of doing that, we can now just do that in one line of code. That's it. So now these two are exactly behind the scene. The compiler, you know, is exactly the same. It knows it's just a getter right there. See, if you put a mouse cursor into this property, it's telling you, oh, okay, you are creating just a getter in this class. So this is much better than writing like 3, 4, 5 lines of code, and I can see a lot of usefulness. We basically we have like a domain object. We can define some basic formatted. Maybe you want to display name for last name, first name in a certain way, or address certain way. We use this. This is very useful feature, and only restriction with this particular syntax, we cannot we cannot have a curly braces right here. We can have and we cannot go into multiple lines. It has to be just in one line. And we can do here in one line, we can do anything that returns a string. We can call another method or just within one line. That is only restriction. Kind of good feature, but not really wow feature, but it's not bad. Alright, finally, the awesome feature. This 6 right here, something called Roslyn compiler. If you guys are not familiar with what the Roslyn is, it's an open source compiler, both C# and BB compiler from Microsoft. It is out there in both GitHub and then in Codeplex, as an open source project. You can basically consume that whole project as a service in your project. That's what we're going to do. I'll show you how to do that. And with this, I can see a lot of people, kind of imagine the whole compiler, whole C# compiler you can consuming as a service. It has a lot of potentiality, guys. Okay. Anyway, let's look. I have one example here for this one. It's going to be a little involved. So let's look into what the project that I have created does. Okay. Let's go into program here, and I have this method here. Okay. Let me run this project, and you will see what this method is doing behind the scene, and I will explain to you. Oh, I had a breakpoint. Oh, come on. Okay. What the application is doing is the following. I'll tell you. Where it go? Okay. So these are the actual data for the stock data. So ticker symbol for, in this case, I call for Disney with a ticker symbol DIS. So basically, I have stock information is starting from for like 3 or 6 months of data here. 1009. I have like the starting price, day high, day low, what the open price of the stock was, what the closing price, what was the total volume on the given day for the particular stock. Okay, so basically it's reading those files, those data, and you might be wondering where the data comes from. The data is basically, I'm storing those data into a text file here. For example, here is for Disney. This is, I think, the 30 days of data from the Disney. And I have the same thing for Facebook and Bank of America or Apple or Twitter or whatever, or Amarillo. Okay, that is my data. So how it is being consumed is, here I have this little text file here called stock data parser. This is actually a C# code as a text file. So basically I'm feeding this text file, the source code, as the data for the compiler. Okay, let's look into how does that work. Here is the, let me close all but this. Remember, this is our starting main right here, so I call this method called load stock data. Load stock data by stock ticker symbol. In this case, the ticker symbol is DIS for Disney. Or I could have used for Apple, whatever I want. And this method right here, I create an instance of stock history info provider. That guy has a method called get stock information by stock symbol. And I pass the stock symbol to it. And then once the data comes out, all I'm doing right here is printing this ticker symbol here. In terms of printing, all I'm going to talk about here, the new feature, this is remember I told you the string interpolation is really awesome. Imagine this code right here. This is a string interpolation. You can do really awesome thing with this. This is awesome. And then here is another string interpolation just to print those data. Okay? That is all I'm going to talk about in terms of this print function. But of course, all the tasks, everything happens excuse me, inside this method, get stock information. Here I define some of my data right here. Some of my stock for Apple, Bank of America, well, these are here. So what happens is, like, when this method gets called, it returns a list of a dictionary of stock information. So if it's Apple, then basically I call this method, right? Just pass the get stock information using Roslyn compiler. See this method right here? And I pass this string called Apple. These private methods get invoked here. Then what happens here? This is all the, well, even before that, I wanted you guys to how to consume your, assuming you have Visual Studio 2015, and how to consume the Roslyn. Okay. In my case, these are the DLL you can use. This is a code analysis and code analysis C#. To do that, basically go into a project right here and go into a manage NuGet package and basically search for the, you can just do search here for code. Okay, it should find that code analysis. ANALY. My spelling. Microsoft. Okay, this is the one, right? This is the DLL. In my case, of course, I have already included into my project, but based on whether you're writing code into C# or VB.NET, in this case, I'm using C#, so I grab this one. If you were using Visual Basic, then you would be installing this DLL. Okay, so when you install this one, in my case, I have already installed. So let's see if I uninstall it. Of course, now my source code it's not going to work. It's broken. So I have to go ahead and install it again. I say okay. I accept your conditions. And it downloads all the DLL needed. Okay, it is finished. Let's close this one. Make sure our project still works okay. Okay, everything is built. Okay, so remember, like, our original code is now basically inside this text file right here. Stock data parser. Let's look at it, what this code does. Basically, this code gets the ticker symbol right here, and then basically based on that symbol, it reads the text file and parse that line of text data into list of stock info. Okay, stock info is very simple. class that has some properties like date, open at, day high, day low, close, volume, all those kind of cool stuff. And of course, this is all happening at runtime. So this is a text file. We are providing this as a source to our compiler. Okay, let's look into that. The idea is very simple. Remember, like you are writing a source code. If there is any syntax, compiler gonna complain, hey, there is a problem in your source code. There is a syntax error or whatever. It's the same thing here. Rather, we'll just it's gonna happen at runtime. So basically, the first thing we're doing on line number 52, we have the text file, this C# code as a text input. We have to read everything into code file name here, variable, and then there's the class for syntax factory, and we give that source code to the factory because it has to parse it. It has to remember like how the compiler works, because it has to go through tokenization. It has all the grammar rule of C#, based on whatever language it is. That the syntax factory knows all those things. And then, of course, now we have to compile it. To compile it, we're going to say, hey, C# compilation option object. We would like to compile it as a dynamically linked library. There are several options. This is just the enumeration. You can see, you can create a console application, Windows application, dynamic linked library, or whatever. In this case, we are creating the DLL. Okay. Remember, like when we're writing source code, we also specify where the particular source code would be using namespace. Like, for example, when we need to say we need a system, or we need a link, or whatever namespace we need, we specify in our source code. The same thing here in the code also. So we need to specify this. Remember, we're saying using the metadata reference, create from file. Which file? For example, we specify the assembly. With this object, if you put a mouse cursor right there, is inside the system. So basically, what the system is inside basically MS Core library.dll, all those deep down, .NET framework. So basically, here we create a bunch of references that we need for our source code file. For example, in this case, I have a StockInfo because I need to provide the StockInfo location because this method right here is returning the StockInfo. If I don't do that, I will show you later, then I will get a runtime error. I also need to the other thing I'm using right here is the system.link namespace, and I need to also say where you can find it runtime. To do that, I can link assembly reference. And after that, I'm saying, okay, hey, C# compilation, go ahead and create. Here is the object I want you to create. This is the name with the option, with the given option right here, and add the syntax tree that we have there and all the references. That's what we basically do when we're writing source code or in a class or whatever, right? Basically, specify all our required namespaces and all the. Once that is all done, the next thing is something we want to make sure there is no compilation error. It can find all the resources that I need to build it correctly. And the last step, once we have a source code, we have compiled and everything is good, we basically would like to execute it. This execution code is very simple. Basically, we could have written this code in .NET 2.0, 3.0 using this reflection. No big deal. So here, basically, this is important. In this case, I need to specify the name of the class here, of which namespace that class resides. That's what it is right here. And using its memory stream right here, I will say, okay, to the compilation object, I give the memory stream to read, and then once it finds out this object, particular object, instance of particular object, or well, not instance, but the type of the object, then I can use this guy right here. We've been using this for so long, right? Activator class. This guy knows how to create an instance based on the type. And we specify the type here. So whatever the result of this one is, we can assign to this StockInfo of type dynamic. This dynamic is a runtime thing. It doesn't know, at runtime it would resolve based on whatever it is. And then once that is all done, we're going to call this method. This object now we know has a method called getStockInfo by stock symbol, and we pass the stock symbol to it. So that's all. The cool thing about this is like our source code is everything is here in a text file. We basically read the text file and we basically compile and made a DLL and we started execute using it. Kind of cool. Of course, there are so many functionality. I don't know what the guys are going to come up with. People are going to come up with so many cool features with this Roslyn compiler, especially code generation. I don't know. There could be so many things you can imagine. Anyway, just like other thing, let's say just for intentionally, I'm going to put some syntax here. I'm going to put something like this here. Remember, like if you were reading this source code, there is a syntax error. Okay, like that. Let's intentionally make that syntax error, okay? And then I'm going to run this code again, but at this time it's not going to run. See, it gives you error. Hey, there is a problem. Not only that, but it's also telling you what happened because we have console.write here. The invalid expression, the term. This is like, we would be getting the same error if we compiled that code with that syntax error in the Visual Studio. Without the Roslyn compiler, the same thing. So the idea is really, really simple. Instead of, okay, let's go ahead and get rid of this one here. Okay, let's do one more thing here, okay, before I quit for this one. What I'm going to do right here, if I do not include this namespace here, do you guys think it might run? Let's give it a try. See, it doesn't run because it could not find the stock info. It has no idea what the stock info is. That's what it's saying right here. The type or namespace name could not be found because we didn't specify, hey, look it into this location. It has no idea how to find about this one. So that's why we had to do this, okay? We had to add that. Okay, now everything would be working. Everything would fine. So anyway, guys, that is all I wanted to say. It has been really long time I was not being able to write code because I got so tied up with the work and finally got some time, and I really like this Roslyn feature and wanted to share something that I learned. I will be putting all this source code into my GitHub account pretty soon, and you can download and play with it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching my videos, guys. I appreciate it.